David Paulides, Can-Am Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our YouTube page. And we are on location. Yes, folks, we took quite a drive today. And to fill you in, we stopped in a little place called Lincoln, Montana on the way down and had lunch. And as we're sitting in this little restaurant, I look on the wall. It's got this photo drawing of this guy I recognize, Ted Kaczynski. If you don't remember him, he's the Unabomber. And as we're sitting in the restaurant, they had a special drink at this restaurant we were in named after Ted Kaczynski because that's where the FBI captured him, in Lincoln. Bizarre. One of those little things you forget in life, but Lincoln was a really nice city, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it was a great place to stop and have lunch. Now, where we are at is a little location about 8 miles north of Butte, Montana. You take a road about 8 miles west off of Highway 15 and you get to the location where we are right now. Now, before I get into the stories for today, I wanted to cover a couple things. Some of you still are having ambiguity about carrying a firearm in a national park. So you can carry a concealed weapon in a national park if you are licensed to carry a concealed weapon in the state that the national park you're visiting is in. All right? So, no, you can't carry a rifle. It has to be a concealed weapon, and you can carry it in the park. Now, national forest, totally different. You can carry an exposed weapon in a national park anytime because people go hunting there, just like people are hunting here in the background of me right now. So, one of getting focused today on why we're here, one of the things I did when I first started to write the books was accumulate stories of small children that traveled phenomenal distances and gained phenomenal heights. The reason behind that is because the rational person would see that child isn't going to make that trip. And that child isn't going to walk uphill that entire distance. Or how did they get there? And in the comments that you read, it stymies the search and rescue people as well. So we're at a place called Maney Lake, M-A-N-E-Y Lake. And it's up in the mountains, kind of north, a little bit west of Butte. And this lake, gorgeous setting, and there's hunters in the mountains. But the point behind where we're at is that there's a cluster of girls missing right in this area. And it's a phenomenally unusual cluster because in all of Montana, there's nothing like it. But today I'm going to talk to you about 2 of those disappearances. And they're very similar, even though they happened 3 years apart. Now, if there were 6 cases like that in a small period of time, it would raise everyone's concerns. Like, what's going on up there? Well, if I spread them out by a number of years, people retire, people forget, all of a sudden it's unimportant. If I spread each case out 30 years, no one's even going to pay attention, except me. Now, in this location, there's 4 girls that have disappeared over a long period of time. Today, 2 of them. Cases from 1950 and 1953. And the first case is a girl named Diane Cox, 2 years old, and she and her family lived in Butte. And she had 5 brothers and sisters. They liked the outdoors, they liked to fish. And they came to a place called the Lowlands Campground. And this is an area about 3 miles from where we are right here. Now, the family liked to fish. And so they would come to the creek that comes out of this reservoir. There's even some trout in here. And they would spend the day fishing, enjoying wildlife, hiking around, letting the kids explore. So that day at 5 o'clock, they had gotten a bunch of fish and they were at that Lowlands campground and they finished dinner and they start looking around and they can't find Diane, who's 2 years old. Well, how far can a 2-year-old go? So they get some other people that are in that campground, and it is a federal campground. And they start looking around, they don't find anything. So they call the sheriff, and the sheriff rallies people, police officers, from Deer Lodge, Powell, Jefferson counties. And pretty soon, they have a couple hundred people roaming these hills and roaming these campgrounds. They're looking everywhere. They bring in dogs. And phenomenally, the first day, they've got nothing. They finish that first day, they don't find anything, they don't see anything, they don't have any evidence, they got nothing. And now they're getting really concerned. Second day, more canines show up. And they show some interest in some cliffs. And they're quite a ways from the campsite. And everyone stops. Some people go down below. Some people start climbing up high into these cliffs. And they get to this trail. It's kind of a game trail up that meanders uphill through these cliffs. And folks, they start finding rose petals on the trail. They're going, what the heck is this? There's not even any roses around here that they know about, even wild roses. And they get up the path and they get way high up on the cliff and they find Diane laying down on the pillowcase to her pillow. They never find the pillow, which she was carrying when she was last seen, but they find the pillowcase with her asleep on it. Searchers said in numerous articles, there's no way that girl made it up that trail. They felt it was impossible. Now, if you can imagine a 2-year-old girl carrying her pillowcase, or just her pillowcase, and then roses and dropping roses up the trail, I don't see it. I don't understand it. And neither did they. And when she was eventually brought to the hospital and questioned, at 2 years old, she didn't make any sense to anybody. And nobody put down exactly what she said. But it was never explained. Now, the issues that caught my attention, elevation gain. She was in an area of boulders and rocks. She was in an area of water. And right about the time that she disappeared, the weather started to change. There was some rain and some snow in the area. This was happened on July 23rd, 1950. The snow happened at the higher elevations nearby. So that's case number one. Keep that in your mind. That was July 23rd, 1950. Now let's go to July 4th, 1953. Almost exactly 3 years later. Patty Ann McLean, 3 years old. It's 2:30 p.m. She lived in Butte. Her family and folks travel 12 to 15 miles north of Butte. Same mountain range, just a little bit north of here. Just a few miles north of here. And they're having a 4th of July picnic. There's 2 boys and there's 3 girls. Now, if you find some similarities, 5 kids in the McLean family, 5 kids in the Cox family. There's 3 years difference, almost to the day, same month. 4th of July picnic. At 2:30, they realize that Patty isn't around. So the family gets nervous and they start calling the sheriff and the U.S. Forest Service. And they start looking around in a swampy area at the bottom of a mountain. There's a lot of water that year. Searchers were climbing, looking, brought in canines. Nobody was having any luck. So as they're searching along, they find one shoe. And they found that halfway up a cliff. Sound familiar? So Patty Ann McLean was 3 years old. Diane Cox was 2 years old. As they keep walking, 8 miles from the point where Patty Ann's family last saw her, they find her up a mountain. They described it as a cliff, and she's alive. When they talk to her, she tells them she slept under a log, which indicated to searchers she didn't sleep where they found her. Now, she was missing one night, almost 24 hours. She said something I'll never forget. She said she saw little cows. This isn't the first time a missing person, a child, has said this. Now, what could they mean? Well, I've had hundreds of responses to this in my books. And one thing that many of you have said is that if I take you up high in elevation and you look down at cows, in a small person's mind, they're going to look like little cows, because the reference point of being high up has probably never happened to them. So what did she mean? Good question. So 2 girls, 3 years, 2 years old, 3 years old, both found high up on cliffs, both alive, both without a clear memory of exactly what happened, or couldn't reconcile it to us about what they did or how they got there. They never did find the other shoe of Patty Ann McLean. So with Patty Ann, elevation gain, boulders, water, and I really can't say lack of memory, but the coincidences in the family sizes and almost the exact location from where Diane Cox disappeared from, you just can't make that stuff up. So the reason why I keep telling you these stories is because I want it to click in. To have 2 cases that close together in time and space and geography tells me that there's something that was happening unusual here, where 4 girls disappeared and some were never found. Luckily, these 2 girls were located. Now, Montana is not an unusual location for this to happen in. Again, in Missing 411 Eastern US, I wrote dozens of stories about small children just like this who disappeared. Many of them were found deceased, many were never found, some were found miles away. Now, that time in Pennsylvania from the 40s to the 50s had more kids disappearing than at any time in recorded history that I've looked at involving missing kids anywhere in North America. So you have to ask yourself then, what was happening in Pennsylvania? So some of you have responded and said, well, I know I'm a lot safer because I'm traveling with a dog. Incorrect. In that Eastern book, I chronicled dozens of stories where kids disappeared with their dogs. Now, what could be happening? Maybe you're walking along and the dog runs off and the person chases after the dog and you walk into trouble. Or who's to say that whatever wants you or the dog wants the dog over you? We always assume it's us, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's the dog. Good questions to think about. In our simple minds, we always think that, everyone would want us number one. Maybe not always. And then if someone loses their shoes or they lose their pillow on a trip and that dog's doing its right job, it should track right to that location. So where's the other shoe and where's the other pillowcase? Things to think about. One last item. My plight with the National Park Service. Nothing new there, nothing to report. Still fighting the battles. There are some strange cases going on that I did talk about briefly in New Hampshire, where 3 people got killed. And many of you responded back that it was a giant rock that broke one of those ropes. And I read that. But regardless, 3 people getting killed in one mountain range within an 8-day period is phenomenally unusual. I don't care where you're at. So I'll keep bringing up these oddities to you as time comes on. This isn't going to be a real long tape today. I just wanted to bring you these 2 cases from a location where we visited and show you something different. I'll scan it around a bit and go ahead and pull it around a little this way and kind of show you what the banks look like here. There's some reeds on the other side. If you look across, you might see some people walking on the other bank. There's a lot of people right here, actually, but it's a beautiful weekend. It's 70 degrees out, no weather to speak of. Guy fishing on the other bank. So yeah, it's beautiful here. Again, most of the people you'll see walking around here, and I get these comments from people who really don't know where I am or what I'm doing, but, oh, Dave, what are you doing carrying a gun? Well, everybody you see on a trail around here either has a gun or bear spray, and it's usually about 70-30 gun. And a lot of times even hikers are just carrying shotguns, not just guns. So a very normal thing, because people who live up here understand that people do get attacked in Montana by grizzly bear. There's a lot of them right now, and it's a big thing in the government between the state of Montana and the U.S. Forest, not the U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, to legalize hunting of grizzly bear because the population's getting too thick in some people's opinions. So some of the things we're faced with. Right now, it's deer and elk hunting up here, and so there's a lot of people in the outdoors. But it's been around a bit more. My ace videographer is doing a phenomenal job. Don't laugh. And give you a little view. This lake is pretty good size. It's very calm, peaceful, and a little murky, so fishing might be good. So anyhow, enough of the small stuff and the scenery. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you in 5 days.